Hello YouTube, W&J's Handy Dad here, and today I'm going to show you how to sand and polish your paint job to get it back to smooth and shiny. I've already completed the hood and the trunk, and I'm going to show you the techniques I use to get that sort of shine there when I do the roof. So the roof has not been done yet. So if you've been following my channel for any length of time, you know that I repainted the hood, the roof, the trunk, the rear bumper, and the rear driver door. And I used different techniques on each, and I showed you what I did and you saw how it came out. The problem with all of them is they had varying degrees of orange peel in them. Some of them pretty drastic and some of them not so bad. For example, the rear driver door has almost no orange peel on it, but the paint being duplicolor in a can had slightly yellowed, and so you see it looks more like a Dodge Stone White than it does the Ford Performance Peel Formance White. Conversely, the hood, I used the duplicolor Championship White from the spray gun, and the white color of it came out almost a perfect match, really indistinguishable to my eyes. You can see there the fender is the factory paint and the hood is the paint I did. But it had a lot of orange peel. For some reason that day the white was coming out of the gun real thick, and I probably should have diluted it with something, acetone or something, but I didn't. I just kept spraying, and when I laid the clear on top of it, it was better, but it still had quite a bit of orange peel. So I knew I was going to have to sand it at some point, and I've always had really bad luck with sanding. And hopefully you can see the amount of orange peel, because this area is not treated and this area is sanded. And I'll be honest, I missed a few spots even on the hood. If you really pick it apart, you'll find spots where I didn't sand enough, but overall it came out looking really good, I think. Whereas you have quite a bit of orange peel left in here, so I'll need to sand and polish all of this to make it match here. First thing you're going to need is a wide assortment of sandpapers. You see I have 400, 600, 800, 1000, 1500, 2000, 2500, 3000, and 5000 grit. And somewhere in this zone here is about as rough as a paper towel, whereas this is more your traditional sandpaper. So number one, you want to start as high up on this list as you can while getting it smooth. So for my hood, I had to start with 600 because 1000 wasn't cutting through the bumps. Now I suppose if you sat here long enough with even a 1500, you'd eventually get it smooth, but since we're doing it by hand, it's just not really practical to sit there and grind all day. So if you're needing 400, you may end up needing to spray another layer of clear coat before you're done, because this is more for taking paint off. Even this is. Realistically, for smoothing, hopefully you've done a good enough paint job that you can start in the 1000 or 1500 range and work your way up. The next thing you're going to need is some sort of compound and polish, and honestly, bang for the buck, the two that you're looking at right there are really difficult to beat. Now yeah, you can buy other brands. I've used other brands. Some of them work great, some of them don't, but I find that these two are just consistently good performers. You can use them by hand, you can use them by machine, and they just seem to do a good job. And that ultimately is what we're looking for. They're also not too pricey. For a beginner, I definitely, I can't stress this enough, I definitely recommend doing this stuff by hand. I've tried with a machine. It's too difficult for a beginner to really get a good job. You sand too much, the compound flings all over. I mean, it's not as easy as the pros make it look. And remember, I'm self-taught here. I've literally been teaching myself by painting and sanding and everything. I have no formal training on this. By hand, I can seem to get a pretty good result. With the machine, it just, I don't know, it just doesn't seem to work. The other thing is the paint that's on here on the back of the can says to not use a machine buffer on it, so that may be why I was having trouble when I was trying to do a machine. In any event, I'm going to eliminate the 400, the 800, 2500, and I'm going to do a 600 wet sand, 1000, 15, 2, 3, and 5. And I can't stress enough, don't skip this. You've got to go through each one to get the sanding marks out. And hopefully the wind doesn't blow all your sandpaper all over the place. So I like to do it with the hose running. This has already been cleaned off, but if you have it dirty, obviously you want to clean it so you don't have dirt that you're scrubbing in with your sandpaper. I like to use a wet sponge to wrap the sandpaper. So since these don't really fit long ways, I do it like this. And then you just want to start as light as possible. Like I said, you're not trying to take the clear coat completely off. If you do, you're going to have to put it back on. So just real light pressure. I like to use a back and forth mostly. You can do a little bit of circling, but I find the back and forth seems to work the best. And it's tempting to wear gloves when you do this because the water and the sandpaper gets kind of rough on your skin, but what's nice about not doing it is you can kind of feel as you're going for it to get smooth. So the first step is going to be the most time consuming because that's where you're flattening it out. You're taking off all of the orange peel and trying to get a smooth surface. And be careful on your edges because those tend to be easier to cut all the way through, even through your colored paint. And unfortunately, if you cut through all the way to the primer or even below that, you got to decide if you want to live with the ugly spot or if you're going to go repaint again. I also find it's best and easiest to work in sections rather than trying to do like the whole hood at once. And it's easier to work in probably no more than a 2x2 section at a time and really get it sanded down to where you want it before moving to the next grit. Sometimes I find it's best to get rid of the sponge and just use the sandpaper direct, and that way you can kind of feel with your hand for the contours and if you're getting the surface smooth enough with the pressure you're using or not. And obviously it's easiest to get the center portion smooth and the edges are tougher because, like I said, you're up against cutting all the way through the paint or not getting close enough to the edge and losing your orange peel. So most of this is smooth now. have to feel for a couple spots that I didn't get as good. Now moving to the 1000 grit, and from here on out, the point of each grit is to just get rid of the sanding marks from the prior grit. You should already have a smooth surface from the first sanding. Again, for tighter fitting areas, I find it's easier to just hold it with your hand instead of trying to use the sponge. And again, I'm using very light pressure. It feels like I'm lifting my hand up rather than pushing down on it as I'm moving, if that makes sense. So I'm not even letting the weight of my hand hold the sandpaper down. I'm actually using less than the weight of my hand. Let's see, that's already looking good. 1500 here. $2,000. $3,000. Finally, the 5,000. That's amazing. The 5,000 is almost like just wiping it down with a microfiber towel or something. It's really, really soft. When you're done with it, it doesn't look polished, but it looks closer. Just inspect it when it's dry. Look for any spots you missed or any areas that you want to rough up again. So from here over, it looks like I've got it where it needs to be. There's a little bit of orange peel right here on this corner, and then it starts to pick up again right in here. If you can see that on camera or not, but it's right here. There's just a teeny bit of orange peel left, and then it's like perfectly smooth here, and then I got a lot of this, and then you see where it's picking up again here. So I don't know if that's showing up on camera or not. So I'll go back over and do this and this, and try to get those smooth. And I'll try to bring it over to here, because I want to have my break point probably over there, and then I'll do this section and then that section last. So breaking it up into 3 sections. And I probably won't sand this just because that's kind of a high impact area, and so thicker paint there is better to me than having it perfectly smooth. Alright, the sanding is done. I think you can see on the camera there is where I stopped. So there's you see where the orange peel begins again. And now that I've done this section so well, I can kind of see a few spots up in here that I didn't get sanded down. The nice thing is when you find those little spots like that that you've missed, you can just go back and do those. You don't have to redo the whole hood or whatever. I also wanted to point out, this is what I was talking about. You see right there where that's the factory paint that's sanded off, but I hit that a couple too many times with the sandpaper, and now there's a spot there. So they don't put a whole lot of factory paint on, obviously, because I barely hit that, and it's right down to the metal, whereas I was sanding this pretty heavily, and where I've painted we didn't go through. So inspect your work, make sure you haven't missed any spots. If you did, go back over them, follow the same protocol. Start with 1 grit and work your way up to higher number grits, and with about 5,000 grit. And then when you're done with that, like this forward white, it can almost just be left sanded and still have kind of a shine to it. Most of your color paints, you're definitely going to see all the sanding and going to need to polish it, but obviously the next step here is to buff and polish, and then wax or ceramic coat or paint sealant, whatever you're going to do. Here's a little trick you can use. Stack your sandpapers face down with your 5,000, and then each progressively heavier grit all the way up to whatever you're using, like in my case 600, and then as you use them, put them face up in the other stack, and that way you'll always have them in order, ready to go. And then when you're done and ready for the next section, you just flip it over and you're ready to go. This isn't going to be as dramatic as it would be on, say, a black car or a red car or something, but ready for the compound now. Shake up your bottle. Just get a small amount for a section like this. And again, I like to buff it side to side more so than around and around. I mean, you can do whatever you need to. And also when you do a section this small, it almost takes care of itself without having to polish it off with a microfiber towel or anything. When you're doing larger sections, typically you'll leave a hazy residue behind and have to take care of that with a microfiber. So I always like to run the back of my fingers and feel for the smoothness. I want it to be real slick and slide off of there. I'm also going to overlap here a little bit because I did sand some of this intentionally, and probably unintentionally sanded some of it too. But this is where I'm putting a little more pressure on. I'm actually pushing down as opposed to trying to lift up on my hand. Go with the clean side if you want and buff it off, or go get a separate microfiber towel and buff it off. Again, with a small section like this, this is adequate. Bigger section, you're going to want to do a separate towel to buff it off. Then we'll do the polish. Same basic procedure. We're going to use a small amount and just buff it in. And I'm using a decent amount of pressure on the polish. I'll also do this section here. And there you have it. I haven't waxed it yet, and the reason is because I'm going to ceramic coat it, and so I don't want any wax on there. In fact, I'm going to have to clean it with alcohol before I do the ceramic, but that'll be another video. I've learned quite a bit about the ceramic coating since my older videos. So my tips are, it works better to do small sections at a time. If you're doing a hood or something, I'd stick with about a 2 foot by 2 foot section at a time. It just makes it a whole lot easier to manage your sanding and getting all that orange peel out. When you try to do the whole hood and you're not a professional, it's real easy to miss lots of spots, or just to basically do the whole hood and knock down a little bit of it, but still basically have the entire thing looking like orange peel. Ask me how I know. But doing a small section at a time seems to be the trick. The other thing is, try to do it in the shade. You see the roof is in the sun right now, so that's why I'm not doing that. I'm just sticking with this. But I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of that off camera. Like I said, I'll do that section, and then above the headlight as a third section, and then I'll do the roof as soon as I can get that in the shade. Here is the final product on the front. And I know it's really hard with the camera to really give you a good idea of before and after. I mean, I try, but it's hard sometimes to get that right angle. But hopefully you can see how much of an improvement it is. So that's really my tip. It's just, you know, if you want to paint your car, it can be done. I mean, you do need to get some basic equipment, but you've seen, even with spray cans, assuming you're doing the white, I don't know how well the black paint would come out with the spray cans, but the white, you've seen me use the spray can and put a little good clear on top of it. And now with sanding and polishing, you want to make sure that you don't sand all the way through your clear. If you do, go back and you're going to have to put another coat of clear on there. And obviously you can mask off or remove pieces when you're sanding. So for example, I could have removed this. I could have put masking tape here and along here, whatever. I chose to just try to be really careful, and the only spot it looks like I hit is right there. And I'm assuming I did that today. I don't know for sure, but I'm assuming that happened today. Anyway, hope the video was helpful. Appreciate a thumbs up. Subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and please tell your friends about my channel. Thank you very much.